The grand hall was bigger than anything most people had ever seen. It stretched for half a kilometer, with walls made of crystal that caught the light from 3 distant suns. The light broke into rainbows that danced across the floor and ceiling. Ambassador Lyranus stood in the middle of this huge space, waiting. Her silver skin glowed slightly, showing she was nervous. Today was important. Very important. The humans were coming. They wanted to join the Galactic Council, the group that controlled trade and peace between all the different alien species. But many council members did not trust humans. They had heard stories. Scary stories. Earth, the human homeworld, was classified as a death world. Most species would never survive there. The planet spun too fast. The gravity was too strong. The weather was violent and dangerous. Storms could destroy entire cities. Earthquakes could split the ground open. Yet somehow, humans had not just survived. They had become the top predators on their world. Lyranus had read all the reports about humans. She had studied their history, their wars, their technology. Everything pointed to them being aggressive and unpredictable. The Council was afraid of what humans might do with access to advanced alien technology. Would they use it for peace or for war? The human delegation was being led by a military officer. His name was Commander Jake Morrison. Lyranus had reviewed his service record many times. He had fought in 3 major conflicts. He had led missions into dangerous territory. He had saved his crew multiple times when things went wrong. He was a warrior, through and through. The massive doors at the far end of the hall began to open. Lyranus felt both her hearts beating faster. Her species had 2 hearts, one on each side of their chest. Right now, both were racing. She took a deep breath and stood up straighter. She needed to look calm and professional. Even though she felt anything but calm, the doors swung open wide. And the human delegation walked in. Lyranus forgot how to breathe. Commander Jake Morrison walked at the front of the group. He was tall, even for a human. His shoulders were broad and strong. He wore a dark blue uniform with many colorful ribbons on his chest. His dark hair was cut very short, the way soldiers wore it. But it was his eyes that caught Lyranus. They were dark and sharp, taking in every detail of the room. He moved with perfect control, like a predator that knew exactly what it was doing. This was not what she had expected. The reports had made humans sound clumsy and brutal. But Jake Morrison moved like water, smooth and graceful despite his size. Every step was deliberate. Every movement had purpose. He was in complete control of himself. Then his eyes found hers across the vast hall. For a moment that seemed to last forever, they looked at each other. His face stayed calm and professional, but she could see intelligence in those dark eyes. Real intelligence. Deep understanding. The reports had been wrong about so many things. Lyranus felt something strange in her chest. A warmth spreading through her body. Her people only felt this way when they met someone truly special. Someone remarkable. It happened rarely. Very rarely. And it had never happened to her before. Now Jake and his team walked closer. The other humans followed in perfect formation, their steps synchronized like they had practiced together for years. They were disciplined, well-trained, professional. This was not a group of wild warriors. This was a team that worked together like a single organism. When Jake reached her, he stopped and extended his hand. Lyranus had studied human gestures, so she knew this was how they greeted people. She reached out and took his hand. His grip was firm but not too strong. His skin was warm against hers, much warmer than any species she had met before. She found she did not want to let go. "Ambassador Lyranus," Jake said. His voice was deep and steady. It carried across the hall without being loud. "On behalf of humanity, I thank you for granting us this audience." "Commander Morrison," Lyranus replied, hoping her voice did not shake. "The Valtherian Empire welcomes you. Please join me at the council table." They walked together toward the raised platform where the negotiations would happen. Lyranus was very aware of Jake beside her. He was warm. She could feel the heat coming from his body. Her species ran cooler than humans, and she found his warmth comforting. Almost hypnotic. The other members of the Galactic Council were already sitting in a semicircle around the platform. 15 different species, all watching the humans with various forms of curiosity and suspicion. Some had compound eyes like insects. Others had thermal sensors that could see heat. Everyone wanted to study these newcomers. High Chancellor Vornis spoke first. He was a crystalline being whose voice sounded like bells ringing. Before we begin formal discussions, it is customary for new applicants to demonstrate their worthiness. Commander Morrison, we understand humans pride themselves on their fighting abilities. Perhaps you would consent to a demonstration? Lyranis felt her stomach drop. This was a trap. Vornis wanted to embarrass the humans in front of everyone. He wanted to show that they were violent and uncontrolled. She started to speak, to object, but Jake raised his hand slightly. It was a small gesture, asking her to wait. What sort of demonstration did you have in mind, Chancellor? Jake asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. Like he knew exactly what was happening and was not worried at all. The trials of worth are an ancient tradition, Vornis announced. His voice rang through the hall. Any species seeking council membership must prove they possess qualities valuable to our alliance. For a species that has built its reputation on military prowess, a combat demonstration seems appropriate. Lyranis stepped forward quickly. Chancellor, with respect, this is highly irregular. The trials are typically scheduled months in advance, allowing candidates proper preparation time. Unless the candidate lacks confidence in their abilities, Vornis said smoothly. Surely the legendary human warriors need no special preparation to demonstrate basic competence. Lyranis looked at Jake, searching his face for anger or fear. Instead, she saw something that shocked her. He was smiling. Just slightly. Like Vornis had offered him a game instead of a challenge. I accept, Jake said simply. What are the parameters? Noise erupted through the hall. Delegates from different species expressed surprise in their own ways. Some changed colors. Others released chemical signals into the air. The Drakmor ambassador, a huge reptilian creature, leaned forward with clear interest. The Drakmor had never lost a trial in living memory. You will face a champion selected by the council, Vornis explained. The combat will be non-lethal, using traditional weapons rather than energy weapons. First to yield or first to be knocked unconscious loses. Do you find these terms acceptable? Perfectly acceptable, Jake replied. He turned to Lyranis and his expression softened just a bit. I apologize if this complicates your diplomatic efforts, Ambassador. I promise to make this quick. The way he spoke made Lyranis believe him completely. There was no boasting in his voice. No false confidence. Just a simple statement of fact. She had dealt with warriors from many species during her 30 years of service. But she had never met anyone quite like this human. The council will reconvene in 1 hour, Vornis announced. That should provide sufficient time to prepare the arena and select a champion. As the delegates began to leave, Jake's second officer approached. She was a woman named Lieutenant Karen Phillips. Sir, this is obviously a setup. We should file a formal protest. Negative, Jake said quietly. The Chancellor wants to see what humans can do under pressure. Let's show him. Karen nodded, though Lyranis could see she was worried. At least let me arrange for medical staff from the ship. Their emergency systems may not work with human biology. Good thinking. Make it happen. Jake turned back to Lyranis. Ambassador, would you be willing to give me a quick briefing on what I'm likely to face? I would rather not go in completely blind. They moved to a private room off the main hall. Lyranis brought up holographic displays showing previous trial combats. Her hands moved through the air, manipulating the images. The most likely champion will be from one of 3 species, she explained. The Drakmor are large and powerful, with natural armor and enormous strength. The Kelthani are smaller but incredibly fast, with reflexes that are almost supernatural. The Vershik are in between, but they have poisonous claws and can see in multiple light spectrums. Jake studied each display carefully. His eyes tracked every movement, analyzing patterns and weaknesses. Lyranis found herself watching him more than the displays. She was fascinated by how focused he was. What can you tell me about human combat methods? She asked. Part of her wanted diplomatic information, but part of her just wanted to hear him talk more. We're adaptable, Jake said thoughtfully. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're not the fastest or the strongest, but we don't give up. We can take damage that would kill most predators and keep fighting. And we're very good at learning our opponent's patterns and exploiting their weaknesses. That's what frightens the Council, Lyranus admitted. Your species seems designed for war in a way most of us have evolved beyond. Many delegates fear what humanity might become with access to galactic technology. Jake met her eyes directly. We've fought enough wars on Earth to know what war really costs. Humanity isn't looking for new enemies, Ambassador. We're looking for friends. But we won't. The arena appeared in the center of the Grand Hall like magic. It was actually advanced technology, but it looked like magic. A circular platform 50 meters across materialized out of thin air. Around it, an energy barrier sprang up. The barrier would keep the combat contained and protect the watching delegates. Lyranus took her position in the diplomatic gallery. Her hands gripped the railing tighter than she meant to. She could not remember the last time she had felt this nervous. Around her, delegates from 15 different species settled into their seats. Some looked excited. Others looked concerned. A few looked almost gleeful, particularly those who wanted humanity to fail. High Chancellor Vornis sat in his crystal throne, looking very pleased with himself. He believed he had trapped the humans perfectly. Either Jake would refuse to fight and look weak, or he would fight and lose badly. Either way, Vornis could argue against humanity joining the Council. Jake entered the arena from the south gate. Lyranus felt her breath catch in her throat again. He had changed from his formal uniform into combat clothing. The outfit was simple and practical, allowing him to move freely. He carried a staff, the traditional weapon allowed in trial combat. As he walked to the center of the arena, he went through a series of warm-up exercises. His movements showed remarkable flexibility and control. Then Korvax entered from the north gate. The size difference was shocking. The Drakmor warrior made Jake look tiny by comparison. Scales the color of polished copper covered Korvax's massive body. They overlapped in patterns that provided natural armor against most weapons. His arms were as thick as tree trunks. His hands ended in claws that could crush stone. He carried a staff sized for his enormous body. It was essentially a tree trunk that probably weighed more than Jake's entire body. Korvax looked down at Jake and growled. The translators converted his words to something everyone could understand. Small human thinks he can dance with dragons. I will teach him the price of pride. Jake looked up at the massive warrior and smiled. Looking forward to it. Combatants ready, the arena master announced. His voice echoed through the hall. Begin on my mark. 3, 2, 1, begin. What happened next would be talked about for years to come. Korvax moved with frightening speed for something so large. He closed the distance in 3 huge steps. His staff came down in an overhead strike that would have flattened Jake if it had connected. But Jake was no longer there. He had stepped aside at the last possible moment, letting the staff crash into the arena floor. The impact cracked the reinforced surface. Before Korvax could recover, Jake struck. His staff cracked against the back of the Drakmor's knee where the scales were thinner. It was a precise strike, perfectly placed. Korvax stumbled slightly. Surprised noises filled the gallery. No one ever landed a solid hit on Korvax in the opening moves. Ever. The Drakmor warrior roared in anger and spun around. He used his massive tail as a weapon, sweeping it at Jake's legs. But Jake dropped flat, rolled smoothly, and came up on his feet. As he rose, he struck again at Korvax's other knee. 2 hits on weak points in less than 10 seconds. Korvax changed his strategy. He abandoned his powerful single strikes and started using rapid combinations instead. His staff became a blur as he attacked from multiple angles. He drove Jake backward around the arena, using his size and reach advantage, but Jake moved like water. He flowed around the attacks instead of blocking them directly. He maintained perfect balance. He stayed just out of reach. Every dodge was minimal, conserving energy. Every movement was calculated. Lyranus realized she was holding her breath. This was not the brutal slugfest most species engaged in during trials. This was something else entirely. Jake was not fighting Korvax's strength. He was fighting physics itself. He used angles and timing to make the Drakmor's power work against him. 3 minutes into the combat, sweat covered both fighters. But there was a difference. Korvax was breathing heavily. His attacks were starting to become less coordinated. Jake, by contrast, seemed to be warming up. He had taken 2 glancing blows that would have broken bones in most species. But he showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, he was moving faster now. Impossible, someone muttered in the gallery. Humans should not be able to sustain that level of activity. But Jake was not just sustaining it. He was increasing it. He stopped retreating and went on the offensive. He feinted left, making Korvax commit to blocking that side. Then Jake pivoted right and struck the Drakmor's elbow joint. The staff connected with surgical precision. Korvax's right arm went numb for a moment before the warrior could adjust. Jake was past his guard. His staff struck at pressure points along Korvax's side with rapid-fire accuracy. Each hit was placed perfectly, targeting nerve clusters that even armored species were vulnerable to. The Drakmor tried to grab Jake with his left hand. Those crushing claws reached out, capable of ending the fight instantly. But Jake ducked under the attempt with inches to spare. He swept his staff at Korvax's already weakened legs. The massive warrior stumbled. Jake pressed his advantage. His staff found every vulnerable point in the Drakmor's natural armor. He was systematically breaking down his opponent's defenses. Each strike built on the last, creating a pattern of damage that added up faster than Korvax could recover from. 5 minutes into the fight, Korvax went down on one knee. His breathing was labored. His movements had become sluggish from the accumulated strikes to his nervous system. Jake stood a few steps away, staff ready, barely winded. He could have continued. He could have beaten the Drakmor into complete unconsciousness. Instead, he did something that shocked everyone watching. He stopped. He stepped back. He lowered his staff. "You fought with honor," Jake said clearly. He extended his free hand toward the fallen warrior. "I yield the arena to you." Complete silence filled the grand hall. No one moved. No one spoke. They were all too shocked by what they had just witnessed. Korvax stared at the offered hand. Confusion was clear in his reptilian eyes. "You yield? But you have one human. I cannot continue fighting." "You would have continued if our positions were reversed," Jake said. "Warriors recognize warriors. I came here to prove humans can fight, not to humiliate a worthy opponent." Slowly, Korvax reached out and clasped Jake's hand. The human warrior helped the massive Drakmor stand up. It should have been impossible. Korvax weighed far more than any human could lift. But Jake braced himself and pulled. And somehow the Drakmor rose to his feet. When they stood facing each other, Korvax did something unprecedented in Drakmor culture. He bowed. It was a gesture of profound respect, reserved only for the greatest warriors. "I have fought for 30 years, Korvax said. His voice carried throughout the chamber. "Never have I faced one who could defeat me while showing mercy. The human warriors are worthy of council recognition. This I declare before all witnesses." The declaration was binding in council law. A defeated champion's testimony carried enormous weight. Vornis had tried to use the trials to discredit humanity. Instead, he had given them their strongest advocate. The arena erupted in chaos. Delegates from various species began arguing. Some supported Korvax's declaration. Others opposed it. The noise level rose until the hall rang with competing voices in dozens of languages. But Lyranus was not paying attention to any of them. Her eyes were locked on Jake as he left the arena. He walked with that same calm confidence he had shown when entering the hall. His posture was relaxed despite having just accomplished something extraordinary. Medical staff rushed to check on both fighters. Jake waved them away from himself and pointed to Korvax. "Check him first." "I'm fine." Karen appeared at his side immediately. Sir, you should let them examine you. Those hits you took would have killed a normal human. I'm not a normal human, Jake said with a slight smile. I'm a soldier. We're built tougher. Besides, I have something more important to do. He looked up at the gallery and his eyes found Lyranus. Even across the distance, even with hundreds of beings between them, she felt the connection. He gave her a small nod, and she felt warmth flood through her entire body. High Chancellor Vornis was arguing with other council members. His plan had failed spectacularly. Not only had Jake won, but he had won in a way that demonstrated exactly the qualities the council claimed to value. Strength tempered with mercy. Victory without cruelty. Power used responsibly. The Drakmor delegation approached Korvax, who was now being treated by medical personnel. They spoke in their native language, too fast for the translators to keep up. But their body language was clear. They were not angry with their champion. They were impressed with his opponent. Lieutenant Karen stood next to Jake, still concerned. That was incredibly risky, sir. If you had miscalculated even once, he could have killed you. But I didn't miscalculate, Jake replied simply. I spent the briefing memorizing Drakmor anatomy and analyzing previous fight recordings. I knew where to hit and when. The rest was just execution. There's just execution, Karen repeated, shaking her head. You make it sound simple. The plan was simple, Jake said. Don't get hit by the giant lizard. Hit the giant lizard where it hurts. Repeat until he can't continue. Then show respect because he deserves it. Around them, the chaos was starting to settle. The diplomatic reception after the trial was quieter than normal, at least by galactic standards. Usually these events were loud and chaotic, with delegates networking and making deals. But tonight, everyone seemed subdued, thoughtful. The trial had given them all something to think about. Chancellor Vornis had retreated to his private chambers. He needed to consult with the senior council members about what had just happened. His plan to embarrass humanity had backfired badly. Now he needed to figure out how to deal with the consequences. Other delegates moved through the reception hall in small groups. Their conversations were hushed but intense. Everyone was reassessing what they thought they knew about humans. If one human warrior could defeat Korvax while showing mercy, what else could humans do? What other surprises did they have? Lyranus moved through the crowd, fulfilling her diplomatic duties. She spoke with representatives from various species, answering their questions about humanity. But her mind was elsewhere. She kept looking around the room, searching for Jake. She had not seen him since the council meeting ended 2 hours ago. Finally, she found him standing alone on one of the observation balconies. He was looking out at the Valtherian capital below. The city stretched across the valley like a field of glowing crystals. The buildings were grown using biological technology rather than built with traditional materials. They pulsed with soft light, creating a beautiful display in the gathering darkness. Lyranus stepped out onto the balcony quietly. For a moment, she just watched him. He stood with his hands resting on the railing, his posture relaxed but alert. Even when he thought he was alone, he remained aware of his surroundings. A warrior was always on duty, she supposed. You should be inside accepting congratulations, she said as she approached. Half the council wants to recruit you for their security forces. The other half wants to hire you as a combat instructor. Jake turned to look at her and smiled. I'm not interested in either option. I came here to help humanity join the galactic community, not to become a celebrity warrior. What you did in the arena changed more minds than any speech I could have given, Lyranus said, moving to stand beside him. The council values honor and restraint. You demonstrated both perfectly. I wasn't thinking about politics, Jake admitted. Korvax is a good fighter and a professional. He deserved respect, not humiliation. It was that simple. Lyranus stood close enough now that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Her species ran cooler than humans, with internal temperatures about 10 degrees lower. She found his heat strangely appealing. Comforting, even. Your people are remarkable, Commander, she said carefully. But they are also frightening to many here. You come from a world that should have killed you. Yet you not only survived, but became dominant. You possess capabilities that most of us have spent thousands of years trying to eliminate from our own species. You're asking if humans are dangerous, Jake said. It was not quite a question, more like an observation. I'm asking if I should be terrified or fascinated, Lyranus replied honestly. Because right now I'm experiencing both feelings. And I'm not sure which one is stronger. Jake turned to face her fully. Those dark eyes held hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Humans are capable of terrible things, Ambassador. So is every intelligent species when circumstances push them hard enough. But we are also capable of incredible kindness, creativity, and loyalty. We believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We believe in standing by our allies even when it costs us dearly. And we believe that the true measure of a person is not their capacity for violence, but their choice to use it only when absolutely necessary. And what about your capacity for other things? Lyranus asked. Her voice had dropped almost to a whisper. What about connection? Understanding? Love? The word hung in the air between them. Lyranus felt her skin warm with bioluminescence, glowing brighter. It was her species' equivalent of blushing. She had not meant to be quite so direct. But something about Jake made her want to abandon the careful dance of diplomatic conversation. Humans are good at those things too, Jake said softly. Maybe better at them than fighting, despite what everyone seems to think. Before Lyranus could respond, Lieutenant Karen appeared at the balcony entrance. Sorry to interrupt, Commander, but we have received a priority transmission from Earth. Command wants a full report on the trial. They want it immediately. Jake sighed quietly. Duty calls. Thank you, Karen. Tell them I will be there in 5 minutes. Karen nodded and left. Jake turned back to Lyranus with an apologetic expression. I need to file this report. It will probably take hours. But I would like to continue this conversation. Would you be willing to have dinner with me tomorrow? I promise to leave my staff behind. Lyranus felt warmth spreading through her entire body. It was a physical sensation her people experienced only rarely, only in the presence of someone they were beginning to bond with. I would like that very much, Commander. Jake, he corrected gently. When we are not in official capacity, please call me Jake. Then you should call me Lyra, she replied. My friends use the shorter version. Lyra? Jake repeated. The way he said her name made it sound beautiful. Like music. Until tomorrow, then. He left the balcony and Lyranus stood alone for several minutes. She was trying to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. She had fallen for a warrior the moment he stepped into the grand hall. That had been immediate and instinctive. But with each interaction, she was discovering that Jake Morrison was far more than just a warrior. He was intelligent and thoughtful. He possessed a moral compass that many of her own people would admire. He was also lonely. She had seen it in his eyes when he spoke about Earth. There was a distance there, a kind of isolation that came from spending too much time traveling between stars. Never quite belonging anywhere, her communicator chimed. It was a message from her superior, High Ambassador Yelnus. He wanted an immediate private conference. Lyranus knew exactly what this would be about. Her interest in the human commander had not gone unnoticed. There would be questions, concerns, possibly warnings about mixing personal feelings with diplomatic responsibilities. But for the first time in 30 years of careful, controlled diplomatic service, Lyranus found that she did not care about the potential complications. She was allowing herself to feel something spontaneous and genuine. It was frightening and exhilarating at the same time. She made her way back through the grand hall toward the private conference rooms. As she walked, she saw Korvax speaking with the Drakmor delegation. The battle master noticed her and nodded respectfully across the space. She returned the gesture, grateful that at least some species understood what Jake had truly accomplished today. The Drakmor were warriors to their core. They valued strength and combat ability above almost everything else, but they also valued honor. Jake had shown them both. He had defeated their champion, but he had done it with respect. That meant more to the Drakmor than any diplomatic speech ever could. High Ambassador Yelnus was waiting in the conference room. He was older than Lyronis by several decades, his silver skin marked with the darker patterns that came with age. His expression was stern but not unkind. "Sit, Lyronis," he said, gesturing to a chair. "We need to discuss what happened today." Lyronis sat, keeping her posture straight and professional. "The trial went better than we could have hoped, Ambassador. Commander Morrison proved that humans possess both strength and restraint. The Council response has been largely positive." "I am not talking about the trial," Yelnus said. "I am talking about you. I saw how you looked at the human commander. I saw how you reacted when he was fighting. Your bioluminescence was fluctuating in patterns I have not seen from you in all the years we have worked together." Lyronis felt her skin warm again. "I respect Commander Morrison greatly. He has proven himself worthy of admiration." "Respect," Yelnus repeated. "Is that what you are calling it?" "Lyronis, I have known you since you entered diplomatic service. I trained you myself. I know the difference between professional respect and personal attraction. What I saw today was not professional. There was no point in lying. Yelnus would see through it immediately." "You are right," Lyronis admitted. "I am attracted to Commander Morrison. More than attracted. I believe I may be beginning to bond with him." Yelnus was quiet for a long moment. Bonding with an alien, particularly one from a species we know so little about. "This is unprecedented, Lyronis, and potentially very complicated." "I know," Lyronis said, "but I cannot control how I feel. The bond recognition happened the moment I saw him. You know how rare that is? How significant. My instincts are telling me he is compatible with me at a fundamental level." "Your instincts evolved to recognize compatibility with other Valatherians," Yelnus pointed out. "They may be misfiring when applied to a completely different species. Or they may be recognizing something deeper," Lyronis countered. "Something that transcends species differences. Commander Morrison possesses qualities that align with what my people value most. Intelligence, honor, restraint, compassion. Why should it matter that he comes from a different world?" Yelnus sighed. The restaurant was on the upper level of the diplomatic quarter, with wide windows that looked out over the city. Lyronis arrived first, her heart beating faster than normal. She had chosen a simple dress in deep blue, a color that complemented her silver skin. She told herself this was just a diplomatic dinner, a chance to build better relations with the human representative. But she knew that was a lie. Jake arrived exactly on time, wearing civilian clothes instead of his uniform. Dark pants and a simple shirt that somehow made him look more approachable. Less like a warrior and more like just a man. He smiled when he saw her, and Lyronis felt that now familiar warmth spreading through her chest. "You look beautiful," Jake said as he sat down across from her. "That color suits you." "Thank you," Lyronis replied, her skin glowing slightly brighter. "You look very nice as well. It is strange seeing you without your uniform." "I spend too much time in uniform," Jake admitted. "When I get the chance to be just Jake instead of Commander Morrison, I take it." They ordered food, and the conversation flowed easily. They talked about their childhoods on vastly different worlds. Jake described growing up in a place called Colorado, with mountains that touched the sky and air so thin it was hard to breathe until you adjusted. Lyronis told him about the crystal gardens of her home city, where plants grew through mineral formations to create living sculptures. "Your world sounds beautiful," Jake said, "but also very different from Earth. Does it bother you that humans come from such a harsh environment?" "It did at first," Lyronis admitted. "The reports made Earth sound like a nightmare. Constant danger, violent weather, crushing gravity. I could not understand how any species could survive there, let alone thrive. And now?" "Now I think your world made you strong," Lyronis said thoughtfully. "Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You learn to face challenges instead of running from them. That is a valuable quality." Jake was quiet for a moment, looking out at the city lights. "Earth is harsh, but it is also incredibly beautiful. The same storms that can destroy also bring rain that makes things grow. The same gravity that breaks weak bones makes strong ones stronger. Everything is extreme, but that is what makes it feel alive. I would like to see it someday, Lyranus said. If that is possible. It is definitely possible, Jake replied. Though you would need some medical preparation. The gravity would be hard on you at first. And the air composition is different. But we have helped several alien species adapt to visiting Earth. It just takes time and the right treatments. They talked for hours. The restaurant staff brought course after course, but neither of them paid much attention to the food. They were too focused on each other, learning about each other, finding unexpected connections between two beings from completely different worlds. Lyranus discovered that Jake loved music. He told her about concerts he had attended, about how human music could make people feel deep emotions just through sound patterns. She told him about Valathirian light performances, where artists manipulated bioluminescence to create visual stories. We should attend one together, Jake suggested. I would love to see that. And I would love to hear human music, Lyranus said. Perhaps we can arrange an exchange. Cultural education. Is that what we are calling this? Jake asked with a slight smile. Cultural education? Lyranus felt her skin glow brighter. What would you call it? I would call it two people getting to know each other because they want to, Jake said simply. Not because of duty or politics or diplomatic necessity. Just because they enjoy each other's company. That is a much better description, Lyranus agreed. As the evening grew later, they left the restaurant and walked through the diplomatic quarter gardens. The pathways were lit by bioluminescent plants that glowed softly in the darkness. Other couples moved through the gardens as well, creating a peaceful atmosphere. Can I ask you something personal? Jake said as they walked. You can tell me if it is too personal. I'm still learning about Valathirian culture. You can ask me anything, Lyranus replied. Yesterday, when we first met, you had a strong reaction to me. I saw it, and I have noticed that your skin glows brighter when we are together. Is that significant? Does it mean something specific in your culture? Lyranus felt her heart skip. He had noticed. Of course he had noticed. He was trained to observe details. Yes, it is significant. The bioluminescence is partly voluntary and partly involuntary. When Valathirians meet someone we are compatible with at a deep level, our bodies react. We glow brighter. It is the beginning of what we call bonding. Bonding, Jake repeated. Like marriage? More permanent than marriage, Lyranus said. When Valathirians bond, it is for life. We choose one partner and remain with them until death. The bonding process begins with recognition, what you saw when we first met. Then it develops over time as the two people grow closer. Eventually, if the bond is strong enough, it becomes permanent on a biological level. Jake was quiet, processing this information. And you are experiencing this with me? Even though I am human. Yes, Lyranus admitted. I know it should not be possible. Our species are completely different. But my instincts tell me you are compatible with me. That we could bond successfully. I have never felt this way before, Jake, not with anyone of my own species. They stopped walking. Jake turned to face her fully in the soft light of the garden. Lyra, I need you to understand something. I am attracted to you too. Very attracted. From the moment I saw you, I felt pulled toward you. But I am a soldier. My life involves danger and long deployments. I move from place to place, never staying anywhere very long. That is not fair to someone looking for a permanent bond. What if you did not have to keep moving? Lyranus asked. What if you could stay here? I have orders, Jake said. Once Humanities Council application is processed, I will be reassigned. Probably back to active fleet duty. That is just how it works. Orders can be changed, Lyranus said. Assignments can be modified. If you wanted to stay, if you had a reason to stay, could you make it happen? Jake reached out and took her hand. His warm fingers wrapped around hers gently. Are you asking me to stay? Because we have known each other for 2 days, Lyra. That is not very long. My people choose slowly and carefully, Lyranus said. We spend years in courtship before bonding, but the recognition is instant. We know immediately when we meet someone compatible. I knew the moment you walked into that hall, and every moment since then has only confirmed what I felt initially. What if I am not actually compatible? Jake asked. What if your instincts are wrong? We are so different, Lyra, our biology, our cultures, our entire evolutionary histories. What if this cannot work? What if it can? Lyranus countered. Should we not at least try to find out? Is the possibility of failure enough reason to walk away from something that feels this right? Jake pulled her closer until they were standing with barely any space between them. She could feel his warmth enveloping her, could see the emotions playing across his face as he thought through everything she had said. I don't want to hurt you, he said quietly. If we start this and it does not work out, if I have to leave and we cannot maintain the connection, I don't want to cause you pain. Life involves risk, Lyranus said. You proved that yesterday in the arena. You took a risk fighting Korvax. You could have been killed. But you did it anyway because it was important. This is important too, Jake, at least to me. It is important to me as well, Jake admitted. More important than it should be after such a short time. You are unlike anyone I have ever met, Lyra. You are intelligent, brave, compassionate, and beautiful. Being near you feels right in a way I cannot fully explain. Then stay, Lyranus said. Find a way to stay. Let's see where this connection leads. I'm not asking for a commitment right now. I'm just asking for time. Time to explore what we could be together. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, that small, confident smile that had first captured her attention. I already submitted a request to Earth Command for reassignment to the Diplomatic Protection Corps, if approved. I would be stationed permanently here on Velatharus. Someone needs to coordinate security for human interests in Council space. I convinced them I am the right person for the job. Lyranus stared at him in shock. You already requested reassignment? When? This morning, Jake said. Before I even confirmed dinner with you. I knew after our conversation on the balcony that I wanted to stay. I wanted the chance to know you better. So I made it happen. That was a big risk, Lyranus said. What if I had said no to dinner? What if I had told you I was not interested? Then I would have had a very nice assignment in a beautiful location, Jake replied. And I would have respected your decision. But I hoped you would say yes. I hoped you felt the same connection I did. Lyranus laughed, a sound like crystal chimes in the wind. You are crazy. Do you know that? Requesting reassignment after one day. I have been called worse, Jake said, grinning. Besides, I learned a long time ago that sometimes you have to act on instinct. Trust your gut. Take the chance when it is offered. I did that in the arena yesterday. I'm doing it again now. We are both crazy then, Lyranus said. Because I was preparing to request a transfer to Earth's diplomatic mission. 3 weeks had passed since the trial, and everything had changed. Humanity's application for council membership was moving forward smoothly. The vote would happen soon, and most predictions indicated strong support. Jake had become something of a legend among the various species. The warrior who had defeated Korvax with honor and mercy. His presence had shifted how the entire galaxy viewed humans, but for Lyra, the changes in the political landscape mattered less than the changes in her personal life. She spent every available moment with Jake. They explored the city together, attended cultural events, shared meals, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Now they stood together in the observation dome of the council building, watching as a human vessel approached for docking. It was the UNS Endeavour, carrying the official Earth delegation that would finalize humanity's membership. Jake's temporary assignment was ending. Soon the new delegation would take over, and Jake would transition to his new role in the Diplomatic Protection Corps if his reassignment was approved. They were still waiting for confirmation from Earth Command. So this is it, Lyra said, trying to keep her voice steady. The Endeavour arrives today. Everything changes again. That was always the plan, Jake confirmed. His voice sounded different, uncertain in a way she had not heard before. Military personnel make poor long-term diplomats. We are too direct, too focused on simple solutions. Earth needs someone with more skill at negotiation representing them on the council. I disagree completely, Lyra said firmly. You have done more in 3 weeks to change how the galaxy perceives humanity than a traditional diplomat could have done in 3 years. You showed them not just that humans can fight, but that they choose when and how to use that ability. That demonstration was more powerful than any speech. Jake moved closer to her, close enough that she could feel his warmth again. That wonderful human heat that she had come to crave. What about you, Lyra? What happens to us when the transition is complete? When I move into my new position? It was the question she had been avoiding, the one that kept her awake during the long nights. Valathirians formed bonds carefully and deliberately after years of courtship. What she felt for Jake had developed with frightening speed, violating every social norm her species observed. I do not know, she admitted. My assignment here is long-term, meant to last for years. Yours depends on Earth Command's decision. The rational answer is that we continue carefully. Take our time. Build the bond slowly and properly. And the irrational answer? Jake asked. There was hope in his voice that made her hearts ache. The irrational answer is that I do not care about proper procedure anymore, Lyra said. That I want to be with you regardless of the complications. That I am willing to fight my own government's concerns and cultural expectations because what we have is worth fighting for. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed. Not a mocking laugh, but a warm sound full of genuine happiness. 3 weeks ago I thought I had my whole life planned out. Military service until retirement. Focus on career advancement. Maybe someday find someone compatible and settle down. Then I walked into that grand hall and saw you, and every plan I had just evaporated. I understand that feeling, Lyra said. I had 30 years of careful diplomatic service planned out. Steady advancement through the ranks. Eventually a position as High Ambassador. Everything organized and predictable. Then a human warrior walked into my life and nothing has been predictable since. Jake took both her hands in his. Lyra, I need you to understand something. I submitted that reassignment request 3 weeks ago. But there is no guarantee it will be approved. Earth Command might say no. They might decide they need me elsewhere. If that happens, if I have to leave, what do we do? Lyra had thought about this possibility many times. Had lain awake at night considering every option. Then we find a way to make it work. Long-distance communication across the galaxy is possible. You could visit when you have leave time. I could take vacation to visit Earth. It would be difficult, but not impossible. Would that be enough? Jake asked seriously. Could a bond survive that kind of separation? You told me Valathirian bonding requires proximity and regular contact. The traditional bonding process does require that, Lyra admitted. But we are not following the traditional process. Nothing about us is traditional. Maybe we can create our own way. Maybe the strength of the initial recognition is enough to sustain the bond even across distance. Jake pulled her closer until they were standing with no space between them. Or maybe Earth Command will approve my request, and we will not have to find out. Maybe we will get lucky and I can stay right here. Do you believe in luck? Lyra asked. I believe in taking action to create the outcomes you want, Jake replied. I believe in making your own luck. And I believe that what we have is worth fighting for, whatever obstacles appear. Lyra's communicator chimed. It was a priority message. She glanced at it and felt her heart's jump. It is from Earth Command. They are forwarding their decision through diplomatic channels. Jake's expression became neutral, his military training taking over. Open it. Lyra activated the holographic display. The message was short and formal. She read it once, then again to make sure she understood correctly. Then she looked up at Jake with tears forming in her eyes. They approved it, she said, her voice breaking slightly. Your reassignment to the Diplomatic Protection Corps has been approved. You are staying. You are staying here. Jake let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for weeks. Then he pulled Lyra into a tight hug, lifting her slightly off the ground. She wrapped her arms around him and let herself feel the relief and joy flooding through her. "We get to do this," Jake said quietly. "We actually get to do this. Build something together. Take our time and do it right." "No more wondering," Lyra agreed. "No more waiting for bad news. We have time now." Real time, they stood holding each other for several minutes. Around them, the observation dome's windows showed the Endeavour completing its docking procedure. Soon, the new delegation would disembark. There would be formal ceremonies and official handovers. But for this moment, Jake and Lyra existed in their own small bubble of happiness. Finally, they separated. Jake kept one arm around Lyra's shoulders as they watched the ship through the windows. "I should probably go meet the new delegation? Help them get oriented. There's a lot they need to know about how things work here." "I should come with you," Lyra said. "It is my job to facilitate the transition. But first, I want to say something important." "I'm listening," Jake said. "I fell for you instantly," Lyra confessed. "The moment you stepped into the Grand Hall. You were everything I had been told to fear about humans. Strong, confident, dangerous. But you were also everything I did not know I was looking for. Kind, honorable, thoughtful. Every moment since then has only made my feelings stronger." "I think I fell for you during our first conversation," Jake replied. "When you tried to warn me about the trial being a setup, even though you barely knew me. You showed loyalty and courage in that moment. You risked political complications to try to help me. That told me everything I needed to know about your character." "So what do we do now?" Lyra asked. "We have time. We have opportunity. But we still face challenges. Our species are different. Our cultures have different expectations. Your people are just joining the galactic community. Mine have been here for thousands of years. How do we navigate all of that?" "We take it one day at a time," Jake said. "We communicate openly. We respect each other's differences while celebrating what we have in common. We build something new that honors both our backgrounds. And we remember why we are doing this in the first place." "Why are we doing this?" Lyra asked, even though she knew the answer. "Because what we found is rare and precious," Jake said. "Because connection like this does not happen often. Because we would both regret it forever if we walked away without trying. And because despite all the logical reasons this should not work, it feels absolutely right." The docking alert sounded. The Endeavour had locked onto the station. The formal reception would begin soon. Jake would need to be there for the handover of duties. Lyra would need to welcome the new Earth delegation officially, but before they left the observation dome, Jake cupped Lyra's face gently in his hands. He looked into her eyes with an expression of such open affection that it took her breath away. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for seeing past the warrior to the person underneath. Thank you for taking a chance on something unprecedented. Thank you for being brave enough to feel this connection and follow where it leads." "Thank you for being worth following," Lyra replied. He kissed her then. Not just her forehead this time, but her lips. It was gentle and warm and full of promise. Her first real kiss with a human. The physical sensation was different from what she had experienced with her own species in past relationships. But the emotional impact was far stronger than anything she had ever felt before. When they finally separated, Lyra was glowing so brightly that the bioluminescence lit up the entire dome. She could not control it anymore. Her body was responding to the bond forming between them,